16. Referring to dolorous times that would mark the planetary renewal, the Master advised those who are in Judea to flee to the hills. The warning is profound because we should understand the word Judea to mean the spiritual region of all those who, due to their inner aspirations, draw near to the Master for their supreme enlightenment. Present day Earth is a powerful picture of this. Devastation and fighting are widespread. Deadly poison are being injected into the masses by unconscionable politicians. The lowlands are covered by thick fog. Holy places are filled with abominable darkness. People are attracted to the sinister light of the fires. The land is being fertilized with blood and tears for the sowing to come. The time has come for those who live in Judea to flee to the hills of superior ideas. It is crucial for disciples of the good to live on the spiritual heights and not forsake the lofty endeavor that the Lord exemplified while on earth. There they must solidify their position as faithful collaborators, invincible in peace and hope, convinced that once the men and women of the perturbation, those who bring destruction and tears, are gone, the sons and daughters of the Lord's work will sow joy once again and rebuild the edifice of life.
All right, thank you for that reminder. So we start with our prayer. We'll close our eyes and feel the loving presence of our mentors with us. Dear Mother, Father God, thank you so much for bringing us here today. Thank you for providing for us and for all of the beings on this planet and beyond, the loving vibrations of kindness, of care that we freely receive during this life. We thank you, God, for this lifetime, for the family we have, for the friends and all of our companionships on this earth. We pray that today your messengers of light and love can continue to give us in this blessed sanctuary their loving vibrations of kindness and healing, that we can feel their loving presence and then we can visualize them helping these spirits who were brought here today to receive this message, to receive the spiritual treatment, triage and transfer to colonies in the spiritual realm. May you bless all of those who have their names in the book of prayer. May they receive the care that they need. May the soothing vibrations of love we receive in our center be spread to our family members and friends all throughout the earth, in this neighborhood. May us feel loving, feeling of being together, being united to progress and to ultimately be one whole humanity, loving one another as children of God that we are. May you bless us and protect us as we begin our studies today. And so be. Bring the letter. Okay. This. Can you turn on the light for me? Thank you. Thank you. Right. So today we're going to talk about expanding a spiritual relationship. So we revise a couple of things we've talked about that are spiritist principles. In the beginning of the new year, we want to remind ourselves of all that we have received and think together on how we can expand those relationships. Ultimately, we are spirits. The technical term is souls for those who are incarnated, discarnated. So every time we think about the relationships we have, the family who received us, the family that we created, the friends and family, sometimes our immediate family members not available, we have the ones we've chosen to be part of our journey on the earth. And that was inspired by the fact that we have 162 years of the publication. Oh, sorry. That's correction before we should not say Genesis. 1 second. I'm gonna correct that right now. Live. We're live, friends. Of I don't want anybody to think I'm misleading anybody. So correct. And we are all susceptible to errors, as you saw. I was thinking about Genesis because we did celebrate that last week. So okay, we're back to Spiritist interview. So here we have the Medium's book was published 162 years ago, and was the second book on the chronology of the books of Kardec. And this Medium's book does bring to us the safe ways to practice, to educate and practice mediumship. It also will state to all of us that we are mediums in different levels, from intuition and feeling the presence of the spirits, all the way to extensive mediumship, which are those who will, be able to converse and see and perceive more ostensibly the presence of the mentors. We want to think about the importance of reading and studying all of the books of Kardec. If we don't have time to do anything else, at least the books of Kardec, we need to read and reread every day. Because once you get to know the Spirit's book, and you know the nature, origin, and destiny of the spirits, and we learn about reincarnation, we learn about family, we learn this 1,019 questions, then you think about, oh, how can I better communicate with them? Not that everybody's going to go out there and be communicating with the spirits all the time, but we are. A lot of us on the earth are in this communication, not even aware. They're speaking through us, they're living in our homes. And every time we interact, we are building or breaking those relationships. Sometimes was we see a couple of examples of constructive alliances and constructive relationships and not so positive ones, because we are all here in this planet. And this was inspired by an article in the Spiritist magazine, issue 43, called Expanding Spiritual Relationships, that comes from the book Eurípides, o Espírito e o Compromisso, by the medium Alzira. And this medium is still alive, and Corina Novelina did receive communications directly from Eurípides Barçanufo, which was a pioneer in developing the spiritual being on the earth. He still has a school. They teach the kids to be spiritual beings on the earth, more than just the math, and was all integrated on how. Because nowadays Google can know everything, but we still need to learn how to be, relating spirit to spirit, spirit to soul, soul to soul in this world. In other words, incarnate to incarnate, incarnate to discarnate, discarnate to discarnate. So the more we know in this plan, the more relationships we build that are positive, that are um, building those relationships allow us to grow our network. And then if one day we need help, we can receive. And one day if they need help, we can provide help. And always remember there's not a one-to-one relationship, right? Not necessarily I'll help Jose who helped me, but it may be that I help Jose who helps Maurice who eventually helps me or someone that I know. So if we see everybody as a brother and sister in humanity, then the possibilities are endless for help and to be helped. To emphasize that I'm not saying we help with the objective of being helped, we just help. But knowing that every time you help, you build a relationship. And every time we hurt, we also build relationships. We expand them in both realms on the earth that we are at. So in this manner, we revise that we are spirits developed by our perispiritual body and then our physical body. The difference between us and our discarnate friends with us today is that they don't have a physical body. But the perispirit to perispirit, those interactions can occur. In addition to knowing some of the principles, I didn't bring them all, the existence of one God, the immortality of the soul, that we reincarnate many times and we are granted this lifetime while many spirits are waiting for that opportunity. And we have 8 billion reincarnated souls on the earth today, plus the spiritual friends with us, plus our mentors, plus our obsessors. I call them interchangeably obsessors and spiritual friends because I don't like the word obsessors, but that's just a preference. But the technical term is obsessor. And the communicability of spirits. Jesus as our guiding model. This would be there as well. So we want to always think about knowing this. What does that mean? How does that help me live a better life today so that I end up in the spiritual realm, which is the true home, in a better situation. That does not mean the difficulties will be resolved, that we're not going to have a physical ailment of sorts, that we're not going to have challenges in our relationships, because remember, a lot of times we return to the people who we hurt and who hurt us in previous lives, as well the ones we loved and we helped. They may be direct relatives or friends, but we always come back in some manner or another to learn to love one another better, to support and help one another. Also, when we talk about expanding spiritual relationships, we talk about um, that we are in community. So there's a law, and the law is of society. The law is not of reclusion, even though some spirits may have that task in this life to live a more reclusive life. There are things to be learned in monastic life that you can't learn in community and vice versa. So each person will have his or her own journey. But mainly the spirit says that as long as we do it, if we go seclude, because many of us like, please God, remove the obstacles. And one way to remove obstacles would be to live by ourselves. You don't have to deal with anybody, there's no differences, it's just you. But that doesn't accelerate the teachings, the teachings we have to have in this life. So regardless if it's a big city, a village, or a small place somewhere, we're not spontaneously born, right? There's no instantaneous creation. You have to have someone agree to receive us, say you, us, which is regardless if they stay in our lives or not. That's the first one. And we are born just as any other mammals. People think little mammals survive on their own. No, they need their parents, they need their colony friends to survive. Many mammal newborns and other species don't survive without the parents. They have the instinct of looking, but when you're born blind and deaf, like a cat or dog would be, they still need to be cared for. But we are born in such a state of vulnerability that it compels the group to care for us. And then as we grow, we learn from them. We ride the roads. There's someone else to be able to go to school so we can learn, and so on and so forth. and then we give back. We have different abilities, and the law of society dictates we are here to be together. So that's when we expand the relationships. And we see it, each and every interaction is the possibility of building on that staircase. We think about progress as going up the stairs because it takes effort. When you go up a mountain, it takes effort, but when you're up there, you can see the beauty of the valley. And the law is also of justice, love, and charity. So that's when expanding those relationships and allow you to be charitable, allow you to learn to love people the way they are. Sometimes we are used to a way of living and we judge people for what they do. But then when you are, it's much harder to hate someone when you know them, when you get to talk to them. So many initiatives can help us, initiatives in the world that bring together um, people who committed crimes with the victims or folks of different ethnicities and religious background living in the same place. For example, there's a big way of Palestinians and Israelis come together in Israel to get to know of one another. So there is a lesson of that animosity. And you build that with reincarnation, with how long the spirits have been together. Um, so the laws of charity. So if we, for example, think that people should, um, we're all in the same boat, we're on the same storm, but we're different boats, right? Some of us are very wealthy, we have had things, our parents provide for us, and others have less. The people in the projects have less of a stability, so we can't expect them to have similar outcomes unless we infuse them with something better. So if you were to talk to a homeless person and understand why they're there, maybe we remove the veil thinking that they're there just because of their own choices, because of choices and whatever happened to them. That's kind of like when you chose things in your life. So it's important to think of us as maybe I was homeless in a different life. Maybe I was of a different color skin. Maybe I didn't. Sometimes we forget that the reincarnation allows us to think of I've been many places. Then how would you like to be treated? In this article, Eurypis Barsanova says, the Master, Jesus, remains waiting our goodwill in the service of fraternal solidarity. So every and each day of our lives, Jesus is waiting for us to do something for others. And that's the selfless examples we have in the world, the big ones. Chico Xavier, all he gave up so we can be here with the books we have. He could have chosen one more self-care, one more sleep night, learning things, right? But Emmanuel, he was disciplined, so Emmanuel guided him and he accepted it. The same way you and I can choose to have one less comfort so someone else can have something. It doesn't need to be charitable in the means giving food, clothing, shelter, which we should do, but it can be just a word, a prayer, something, a presence, a phone call. These days, a WhatsApp message or Instagram, whatever. Whatever they're going to invent in the future in terms of Paul used letters, it couldn't be everywhere. Mother Teresa have always received, Irmã Dulce in Brazil, Sister Dulce. They received a lot of things and they didn't use for themselves and they gave it to others. So that's fraternal solidarity. And he says how to reach this road of solidarity. And we see the road is luminous. When we are practicing solidarity, we gain enlightenment, we gain more knowledge of what's really important. He says, in the cultivation of devotion, in the consecration of renunciation, in the exercise of goodness, in all the hours of our day. Can you think of an example of how we can do either of these or any of these three in our lives this week? Because it's beautiful to say, oh, go practice charity, go be good. But I want to always try to bring something into today, like your life, my life.
Well, in the cultivation of devotion, I think us showing up today and us reading and us sharing and talking with each other in the studies of Spiritism, we're supporting each other's devotion.
And the blessings that these teachings have, right? Life would be probably harder if we didn't know, if we thought maybe we were being punished when something hurts, the gods are punishing me. God's punishing me. Knowing that there's a reason, even though it's not pleasant. And then we devote ourselves to understanding the physical body, and others go to medical school, others go to nursing, and they can help us heal and be whole as well. In all of the hours of our day, so the moment we wake up, we can say a prayer of gratitude and have the devotional moments. In other religions, people do that. First thing they do in the morning is read passages of the Bible and reflect on that. And we can do things like that when we don't have child of God or happy life. But when you have a book like this, you could, have it by the bedside. And these days, like I said, we can have it on our phones, right? The Kindle app should use it. Technology is only bad in the way that people use it. From the time when we go to work, we can pray for those on the road. And then you do your things during the day, you bless the food, and then at night you can pray that you can be of service somehow. And noticing how your day went and how you spend the night, gives you an idea of, how peaceful we can be when we go to the spiritual realm to take classes or to learn and to serve, so on and so forth. So I'm going to give you two examples of building this solidarity and expanding these relationships. The first one is more known. It's the case of André Luiz, right? André Luiz dictated the book No Solar, and the picture on the left is him visiting his house, okay? While he was for 2 years in No Solar, maybe a year, there, sometime, he went from being a patient to being a worker. As a physician, he wanted to be a physician, but he realized he knew nothing about spiritual medicine. We barely know anything about human body medicine these days. Okay? Um, then he worked and he worked and he made friends and he had bonus hours. Went to the field of music. He learned a lot. And a lot of the time, he was asking about his family, and the mentors knew he wanted to go back, but everybody was so discreet. And how many times we are not that discreet on the earth? We know, but we tell, we don't want people to go. And at some point, he realized he couldn't keep asking because there was a reason why nobody was talking to him about it. So he returns and he finds that the picture here on the top dictates that his wife was remarried. He was for years in the spiritual realm, a different time on the earth, where being a single woman probably was still not easy. Back then was worse, right? So she's remarried. She likes him very much. The children seem to enjoy him, but he's ill. He also has some spiritual friends with him. And then he has to make a decision. He has to make a decision: do I return to my old me and possessive, or do I help? And that's when all that work he did didn't necessarily help Nurse Narcisa, which is the woman you see with the light on the picture, directly, but he worked side by side with her, helping the patients. And that built a relationship that when he got to the point that he started seeing that gentleman as a helper in the family, she was able to come and help them. That can help to you and I, and that's part of the reason I'm putting here. During the night, it's important to have that sleep hygiene. What are we watching? Because what are we seeing? What are we hearing? Because those spiritual people, they're waiting for us. There are plenty of examples in his books of we commit, we want to go take a course, but then we spend time gossiping about someone. That someone's waiting for us, or their friends are waiting for us, and we're like spending the night fighting, physically, and then we wake up so tired, we don't know why. It happens all the time. But they were doing spiritual treatment. She went to the nature. That's why it's important to have nature around in places. She extracted elements from nature, infused the water, and drank. But it took what? Merit. It took work from him, from going to my family, my days, mine, to seeing that person as a a brother that was helping, because if he wasn't there, the children probably much dire straits. Sometimes we see that. Question: would we do that? We'd go back a few years later and be able to have that growth that he had, hopefully. Um, so we start now. We are friends with the people who we interacted with and had relationships with, and if we start making those amends now when we go to spiritual realm, it's a little easier, and it's called detachment. Right? Seeing, but it's hard because when you think about the way we are living as a society to be all about us, about mine, right? Now the second way, this is a positive alliance, positive relationship. Now, there's also ways we make expand our spiritual relationships that are not so positive. And this is an example in the book Sex and Destiny. Here, it's a beautiful book, and it's a very interesting way here. So here we have on this side, this lady had an accident. She's being treated. And here is a gentleman in her life, and a spiritual friend is here. And you can tell the difference between the mentors and him. They usually tend to depict, project imagine. They tend to depict people a little darker, like denser when they are there. She's in coma from our medical standpoint. But what's happening is her body is damaged because she had been run over by a car. Kendra always was trying to help. They were able to prevent her from committing suicide. She crosses the street and a car hits her. And then that's the moment they say, we've done all we could. The mentor didn't know why the thing was happening. They just stood there and prayed that they could help the best way. So she's in the hospital. But she's thinking about her sister because there is a love drama there where they're interacting with different men. One is dating the other person's person. It happens all the time on the earth, even today. But she's thinking ill about the sister, kind of blaming the sister for her problem. This gentleman hears it because it's thought to thought. They can perceive her thoughts. And that picture in the back, in the bottom here, is him running away from the hospital to find the sister. And later he finds that he's there attacking the sister, because she passes away. In the story, here's the sister, and he goes straight to her. I want to leave you not with that image in your head, but with the image of goodness. But that happens everywhere. You see people, they have no concept. It's all, you only live once. Let's go here, do this, and you have a relationship with this person, but he or she likes that one. It's all, and even when we think we're not thinking, we're thinking. And those friends, that guy loved her. He wanted the best for her, and his best was to, oh, if someone's hurting you, I'm going to hurt that person. And that's one way of not expanding the spiritual relationships, because inadvertently we can gather. And a lot of times there are the same way the good organizes the spiritual missions that come down to the earth to help. Those who are suffering, who are not incurring good, by definition, in the spirit book, they're incurring evil. They also organize, they take turns being the obsessors. In the book Obsession by Divaldo Franco, that's exactly what happened. They take turns in the asylum, in the mental institutions, because we used to have those, right? They take turns with the girl, so she never leaves that state. And that's, when we make choices of, we hear something at work, we can choose not to pass it along. We can choose to focus on the good of that person. And that's how we build those relationships according to Euripides Barsanov. He says, brethren, let us seek the beauties of the good in all and in everyone, and little by little we shall find the sure and certain path of indispensable renewal. We talked a little bit about Spiritism being a science, right? This builds on thought and life. Manuel says in the chapter 10, seek the good, visualize the good, mold the good. Because when we look at people, even though I don't like them, I might be able to build that relationship. Maybe they're having a hard time and then we pray for them. And then their mentors can more help. We donated the spiritual fluids we talked about, so the mentors can help them feel better and do better in whatever they're doing in the world. And he continues, let us not forget the duties of fraternity among these individuals, as the family of the Spirit is greatly enlarged. Remember that our neighbor is humanity. And that's when we step outside of, I need to do X, Y, Z for my family, my kid, my profession, my career, my. And if we just said, okay, I'm a part of this group, I do this work in Richmond. If my company does better for the greater good is better. It all comes back to you, because if you did better for your company, the company can better serve the customers will be happier, the more they come back for the company. There's always an incentive. In the world, we have incentives. But it's really seeing yourselves as the humanity. We talked about reincarnation. Tomorrow, I might reincarnate on the place with the people I hate the most. Or maybe that's why I don't like that group of people. Maybe because I was there and I messed it up there, and now I'm here and I feel bad. I feel better than them, and now I dislike it. So it's always thinking about, what am I here to do? What kind of spiritual qualities am I here to learn? And the way to know of that is the question 919 is a self-knowledge question, which St. Augustine reminds us of doing that daily exercise of reflection. And in order of planning, you can always plan. If you were to go to question 100 of the Spirit's book and you look at the hierarchy of spirits, you can go and circle the things you are doing today, that we are doing today, that are not as um, advisable. And then you can go to the second part, which are the good spirits. And then you can be like, okay, in 5 years, I want to have these and these better, or I want to have that and that better. And it says, necessary to expand the scope of spiritual relationships every day through the ever increased interest in the welfare of all creatures. So when I see someone on the street and I say, what, God, how can I help that person? Or I ask them, what do you need today? Or I go home and I think about the family where I live and how can I be better in that relationship of all creatures. Because the earth is not made just of humans. We have all the kingdoms of life and we are intertwined. What happens there affects us. What we do affects them. And the spiritual principle in development needs that love and care so that it can develop better. The earth will be fine with climate change. The question is the beings that inhabit the earth. The earth was here before we were able to have the conditions to have humans and subhuman primates and all that geological story. The earth will be here for a while, if we don't do anything to it. But the sun will be there 500 million more years. It's more about how can we look at the welfare of everyone. So when I give up my time to do something for others, I'm building that relationship with them. They're mentors, because they're spiritual mentors, but in the books of anthology, you see sometimes the mothers of those people come and ask the mentors, can you help? And then they consult, right? There's always a hierarchy. On the earth, we think we just do whatever we want. But if we think about the structures of the spiritual colonies, you only get to lead if you have the moral development to go with it. You're not just elected, because you look good and you say good things. It comes with the merit for people to admire you and see where you are. So sometimes we think about those least of us, and then we think, how could they have done that? You can think about their mothers, their fathers, their aunts, grandmothers, or whoever took care of them. They were a baby at some point, and then they received the nourishment. So if I have two trees, one I give everything, one I don't, they're not going to grow to be the same. Not excusing the choices we made, but we have to think about that too. So what about us? What about the Spiritist practitioner? He says, to the Spiritist, will be required much love in the multiple manifestations of charity because the Spiritists receive much from mercy through the understanding of the eternal clarity. The mentor says, you guys asked to be here. You asked to do this. And we know there are hundreds of years before we even reincarnate, they're planning the nuclei of Spiritists and probably of all religious institutions, because it's not just the Spiritist that has the key to, every institution on the earth that does the good have their mentors and their planning and their organization. Where two of you gather in my name, there will be. It's knowledgeable. But we've given much from mercy. And in the book, Among Brothers of Other Lands, there is a message that is, it's called the Parable Retold, if I'm not mistaken. It's a rabbi that comes and asks for permission to retell the story of the talents. And in there, describes the people who receive knowledge, money, possessions, and the other one received power, authority. I'm paraphrasing the message. Entre Irmãos de Outras Terras is the name of the book, but it's already in English. And then there, the rabbi says the third person was the one who only received Spiritism. And he comes back bitter because he says, you gave all this stuff to other people and I only got Spiritism. And the master, the Lord says, you're going to go back, unfaithful servant. And you're going to come back without Spiritism. Now imagine if you live in a place, no, you can be here. You're living in a hotel room with your children because you don't have money to rent. Imagine how desperate that is because you don't know there's a reason, there's lifetimes, there's relationships, or you're in Ukraine and you're sending your child to fight a war. They might not come back. Now those spirits are suffering. They'll find themselves on the other side if something happens to their physical body. So now you think about the layers of spiritual suffering. I'm not even talking about psychological, emotional. That's it. Now we think it doesn't affect us, but we are sinking a lot of money into it. So your work and mine will pay for it, which is fine. We have to take care of things on the earth so it doesn't escalate. But then now a generation of traumatized people that are spreading all throughout the world, or staying but still traumatized. So we've been given much mercy, and then today we have this. We come to these teachings. What are we gonna do with it? That's the question, right? And it's always easier to go with the flow and one more fun thing, one more thing, because we don't have the courage to stick with what's important. We want to fit, and we don't want our friends and family members. I'm sorry. I don't know why my phone is connecting there. And we want to make sure that we can do the best we can, enjoy, read as much as we can here in the physical realm, and grow and let it go, let it be. Like I was saying, I have all these books that I want to read, you can buy more. In the spiritual realm, you have to have merit, you have to work to go to study, to have a course, to go to fields of music. Here we just get a phone and do whatever we want. So I hope that this is inspiring for us to go through that development of the spiritual relationships, which comes to helping others, so that maybe one day we'll have merit. We have merit, and God always provides, always answers. There's always an answer to our questions. In the book Good News, Jesus says that. But sometimes to Peter, it's a conversation between Jesus and Peter. But sometimes we're not asking for the right thing. So what the answer God gives us is what we need, not what we want. Because even in the physical sense, we can't all have everything because the earth can't support that. Right? We don't need everything. Slowly, we will build those relationships, and as we continue, we will have our spiritual moment, our musical moment with Jose is gonna lovingly pray for us. I'll project the songs. Feel free to sing. You guys at home as well. I'm going to. Okay, cool.
This reminds me the book The Messengers. I think it's the second one of the Luis. When the mediums were talking about all the regrets, right? Yeah, basically the more we know, the more responsibility we have. Okay, this is Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did the grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already gone. This grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been here 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, with no less days to sing God's praise. That's when we first began.
That was great. Thank you. Dear Lord, mentors, spirit guides, thank you for today's blessing. Thank you for this incarnation with the joys and challenges and trials that we endure. May we celebrate the highs, may we learn from the lows, and may we be there for each other in positive ways to support our devotion to you, to help each other grow. Please help us increase our connection, our brotherhood, our sisterhood. Please help us have strong, healthy families and a strong, healthy role in our neighborhoods and across the world. Please help us learn from our trials. Please let us know that our sicknesses, our illnesses are temporary, but God's love is eternal. Please bless the sick, the needy, the homeless, and may God's love and benevolent spirits be felt by all. So be it.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Those online, those here. Thank you so much for being here.